Hi, Shannon Waller here, and welcome to the Team Success Podcast. Today we're going to talk about something that I discuss a lot with various entrepreneurs and various team leaders, and that is about acknowledgement. And one of the things I've noticed is that people say, "Great job," a lot. And by the way, when I say people, I also include myself. But as the title of this podcast is why saying great job isn't a great acknowledgement, it doesn't always have the impact that we want it to. It doesn't land the way that we want it to. People are like, okay. And in fact, if we ask them, do you feel acknowledged? They're going to pretty much say no. They're like, well, sort of, maybe, a little bit. And they won't really feel it. So what I really want to get across today is why you want to get really, really good at acknowledging people and then teach you exactly how to do it. And I have to say, I've gotten some absolutely brilliant coaching from the Collaborative Way. So this is Lloyd Fickett and Krista, his partner, and there's a whole formula. So I'm going to share that with you today, but please go and check out the Collaborative Way materials. So collaborativeway.com, order their book. Great parable story, super easy to read, super fast. And they have a whole section on acknowledgement. And when I learned it, I was like, oh, this is going to take my acknowledgement to a whole new level. And the other place that I'd first learned about a better way to acknowledge people was actually in some of the parenting books that I've read, where they talk about being specific, really about rewarding effort, not just the final result. So one example I remember from a book is instead of saying, oh, great job cleaning your room, normally that usually is after they say, if you've even said that, it's like, oh, your pillow's not at the top of your bed, it's in the middle. And instead, an acknowledgement would be like, oh my gosh, look at all of the effort you put into cleaning up your room. I've noticed that the pile of clothes is now in the laundry basket. Your cupboard doors are closed. You put your toys back in the basket. You've even pulled up your cover on your bed. Awesome. Way to go. And now, do you think you can move your pillow from the middle of the bed to the top? That would really finish it off. So I was reading this going, oh, that's really different than how I've been doing it. Because it was specific, the kid got to celebrate lots of wins and lots of things that they'd noticed. What do I normally pick on? The one thing that they missed. And we do that. As parents, we do that. And as leaders, we do that too. So I'm really big on this topic of acknowledgement because I really like great acknowledgement when it's done well. And if it's not there, sometimes I notice. I mean, I'm very self-directed and I don't need a ton, but I do want to know that my work is having the impact I want it to have. And by someone letting me know that, that's what I would call an acknowledgement. It's like, oh, that really made a difference for me. It's like, great, that's good. That's what I want to know. Was this worthwhile for you? So that's the importance of acknowledge, that it really validates the behaviors that you like and that you appreciate, that you see that add value, and maybe that you want more of. And a lack of acknowledgement communicates, even though you may not think of it this way, communicates a lack of caring, a lack of attention, and being taken for granted. Now, imagine if you were working for someone, which for some of us has been a very long time since that happened, but that person didn't seem particularly interested in the great quality work, didn't make a lot of distinction between when you were having on days or off days, just thought that when you did show up and deliver, that was what they were paying you for, and didn't describe what a difference your work made. And how did you feel? Well, you probably felt a little bit taken for granted. Did you feel like giving your best? No, because it was never acknowledged when you did that versus when you didn't. So people tend to disengage a lot when they're not feeling appreciated. They tend to not actually know what to do more of versus what to do less of. So they're not always putting forth their best work because they kind of don't know what that is, what makes a difference for you. And you're not getting the most out of people. And I'm not talking about using people in the manipulative way. I'm talking about using people for their highest and best use. I want to be used up when I die. I love that particular poem. But it's really key that I want to be used for what's going to make the biggest difference. And if I can't be used for that, I'm probably going to go somewhere else. That's, I think, how a lot of people think. So acknowledgement is so rich in potential and it doesn't really cost anything. It's one of those things that we can give freely that really buys us an enormous amount but doesn't cost anything. This makes sense to get good at, to get better at. But you may need to check some of your own filters or some of your own thinking to jump into this conversation because people have different mindsets around acknowledgement. They have the mindset, well, why should I say anything? They're just doing their job. And people receiving acknowledgement will sometimes say, well, I'm just doing my job. That's what you pay me for. It's not fun to give acknowledgement to someone when they just kind of bounce it off you again. So it takes two to tango for this acknowledgement conversation. But you do want to be aware of your mindset. Do you think it's appropriate to acknowledge and appreciate people? or not? Or is that something you think is just kind of part of the deal? So if you do think it's not really very necessary, then I just simply want you to listen with an open mind. And if you do value acknowledgement, then hopefully this will deepen your skills even further to get better at it. At the end, you can let me know what happened for you in the conversation. Before I jump in, though, on how to do a really great job at acknowledging people, I want to explore the meaning of the word appreciation. And if you think about it from a stock market's point of view, if we look at some capital, if we look at some stocks that we own, what are we looking to happen with that? Well, we want to appreciate, which means we want the value to go up. So when we appreciate things, the value goes up. Yes, and I like applying this to people, not just to houses and stocks. I think it applies just as well. So when we appreciate something, it really means we value it more. And then we tend to get more of it. That's the great thing about appreciating people. They tend to give us more of what we're really liking. So that's what you're doing when you are acknowledging and appreciating people. You're expanding the value that's even possible. So a couple of things are required in order for you to do a great job of acknowledging. One is time. You actually have to be able to stop for a moment and have the time to acknowledge someone. It also requires your attention. And this may be the harder part. I don't know about you, but I'm busy. I have a lot on the go, lots in my calendar from morning until night. And if I'm in my head when I walk down the hall or when I'm in a meeting, if I'm distracted, if I'm not present, I'm not paying attention to what other people are doing. I'm focused on what I have to get done, not other people's contribution. And it may not even be a contribution to me. Maybe it's to a client, but I'm just like, oh, that was great. Next. Or it's very cursory. That's what happens when we don't have much time and attention, as opposed to a larger, more expanded acknowledgement. One other obstacle that we face sometimes when acknowledging people is that it can feel a little bit intimate, and we're kind of unfamiliar with that, at least in the workplace, maybe other places too, who knows, because it almost does require an emotional connection. So we have to be willing to feel something, not just think something. Appreciation is a feeling. And if we don't go there during our workday, this will feel very, very awkward. So that might be part of any resistance that you might be feeling or that you know as other people are feeling, is it requires that emotional connection. And if you're not used to that either from being on the receiving end, that will impact your ability to give it as well. So again, these are all kind of thoughts around acknowledgement and appreciation. Now, let's look at expanding our skill development for acknowledgement and appreciation. So first of all, you have to figure out what to acknowledge. And this means you have to pay attention. What's getting better? So you really want to become sensitive to those things that will help people grow, encourage constructive behavior that will generate enthusiasm, and forward what you guys are up to. I was doing some coaching recently, and Suvi, who's our video queen, she's just amazing at it. She was describing the fact that she went to the United Kingdom and met with a ton of our clients and our coaches. She got to see one of our coaches, David Coach, which she's never been able to see before, and really connect with people about what was happening with our UK marketing and capturing and telling our clients' stories. And it was just a really great experience. And we have a very small team that does this, 2 people, but they're kind of doing the work of 10. And I happened to be in a situation where I was coaching our team on our stuff, so they have their own planning time. And I got to hear what she'd been up to. This was part of one of her exercises called the Moving Future, where we celebrate the success over the last 90 days. It was kind of presented to me on a platter, this particular opportunity to acknowledge her. And then you want to decide when to acknowledge someone. Well, as soon as possible. If it's delayed, if it has to be, that's fine. Better late than never. However, if someone does something fabulous, let them know right away. It reinforces that behavior. And anyone who's trained children or dogs, this is very important. If you try and reprimand a dog for doing a behavior you don't like 20 minutes later, they have no idea what you're talking about. They're like, what's your problem? Why are you upset? Kids and adults are kind of similar to that. So the sooner the better. And the part of the reason for that is still fresh in their mind too. If you do it a week or 2 weeks or months later, they can barely remember. And a lot of other activities, a lot of other thinking has happened in between. So they won't get the full emotional hit, the benefit from that if you delay it. So as soon as you can, as immediately as you can, sometimes there are limits on that, that's when to give them a really great acknowledgement. You also want to be very specific. So this was the coaching I got from my parenting book. You really want to let them know what specifically you appreciate about what they did. And what I love about this is it doesn't even have to be someone on your team. Anytime I hear anything good about our team, If it comes up in a leadership meeting that I'm in, that we were talking about a particular salesperson or a particular person on our workshop resource team or what have you, and say, oh, so-and-so was talking about you in the meeting and said what a great job you did at this. Thank you so much for helping to solve that client's problem. That really sounded like it made a big difference for them. Thanks for resolving that technical issue. Thanks for making sure that marketing piece got out on time. Whatever it is, and knowing that they were being talked about in a positive way, I just want to celebrate people's progress and people's success. And it makes such a difference that they go, oh, really? I'm sure their team leader did, in fact, acknowledge them. But the fact that they would actually bring it to a whole group and share it amongst the leadership of the company, that's a big deal. So, and I know that that's happened. If it works out circumstantially, then I will relate that to the person. And I remember that. As soon as I see the person, then that example comes to mind. So that's really a fun way of paying attention and to notice specifically what people have done. And then you also want to acknowledge the circumstances around it. So for example, with Suvi, I could have said, hey, great job doing videos in the UK. That could have been the simple version of the acknowledgement. But instead, if I also said, hey, you know what? It wasn't that long ago that she went, by the way. It's like, you know what? I'm so excited. I cannot wait to watch those videos. I know I'm probably going to cry. When I see someone else crying, it's probably going to trigger me. I love that you had such an emotional connection with our clients. I know that the two of you are actually doing the job of normally what would be about 10 people on a crew. So you're doing the site selection, you're doing the people selection, you're doing the lighting, you're doing all the schlepping of the heavy video equipment. The two of you are functioning like a team of 10. That's impressive. But not only that, you're able to connect with people so deeply that it got emotional for them. They share with you their most intimate stories about the difference that the Strategic Coach program has made for them. That's life-altering. You really reinforce the value for them and the progress that they've made in their lives as a result of doing the program and taking action on what they decide to do in the workshops, what they decide in the workshops. That's a big deal, Suvi. So I was practicing acknowledgement today in our conversation. So this is actually what I said to her. And both of us, our eyes got kind of wide because you could just feel it. It felt so different than great job. And I really liked it. And I also said, I appreciate that you stepped out of your comfort zone. This was a stretch for you. This was something you hadn't done before. It was doing it in a foreign country. Language is the same, roughly, slightly different accent, but still it takes something to do that. So I appreciate you doing that. And then the last part of it is you also acknowledge the impact on you and the impact on the future. So one of the other things I came up with to say was like, wow, I've actually been to the UK. Never in a million years occurred to me to try and capture the stories the way that you have. I know that those stories are going to impact me. And I love knowing that now I'll be able to share those stories with all of our clients around the world. That's pretty exciting. That has an impact on me. And I can see how this can develop brand new capabilities into the future. So now this and this and this can happen. Now, we can go back again. Now we're going to have an even better UK marketing strategy. Now the clients know you. They'll send you some great information. Wow. So as you can tell, it took a few more minutes than great job. But it didn't take that long. And all I had to do was pay attention. All I had to do was listen to her about what she'd done because she was telling the story. And at the end, we both were like, wow, that was really cool. I really got the full value of what she did, and she really got the full value of what she did. And this was an exercise that we were doing this morning on this particular topic. So when you really discern what to acknowledge, you choose when to acknowledge it, which is as soon as possible. Pay attention to the specifics and the circumstances around what they were doing and the impact on you and the impact on the future. You have given a stellar acknowledgement that will really have an impact on people. Now, if you're someone who is in the habit of just doing the cursory version, this will take some practice. It may be hard to get it to more than 3 sentences, completely and totally up to you. But I want you to try it. And by the way, this works just as well in your personal life as it does in your business life. And I think it works just as well with your peers as it does with your team. I think it works really, really well with your colleagues. So if you're the entrepreneur, works great with other entrepreneurs, works great with your team leaders, works great with your team, works great with your suppliers and your partners to give a very specific, concrete acknowledgement. Then take it home. Do this with your life partner, your spouse. Do this with your children. Do this with your friends. And they may look a little squirmy. Sometimes be like, why are you saying all this stuff about me? And I was just doing what I always do. So some coaching I got at some point, because I used to rebuff acknowledgements. I used to it was nothing. And if you say that, please, I say this with love, but bite your tongue. Please don't actually say that. You want to just smile and say thank you. That was the coaching that I got. And I do this in my workshops. I'll compliment someone. I remember it was really fun coaching a team leader one day, and he showed up impeccably dressed. I mean, most people come to the workshops in business casual clothes. This guy had this beautiful suit on, beautiful purple tie, remember, color-coordinated shirt, just looked natty. Looked very dapper. I think that's the best word. And I complimented on it, and he looked a little embarrassed, actually. I said, "Oh, don't you look handsome today? I love your suit. I love how you put together." And he started to rebuff me. I said, "Okay, hang on a second." And his team was chuckling because he's always well-dressed. He looked uncomfortable, and I didn't embarrass him necessarily, but he was not used to receiving acknowledgement. And I said, "Okay, everyone, this is just going to be a lesson that I've learned, and now I'm going to pass it on to you. When someone gives you a compliment, smile and say thank you." And I said, "I don't care if you're gritting your teeth. Do it anyway." So I said, "Oh, really nice suit. I love the color of your tie." He goes, "Thank you." And you can tell he was kind of grimacing at the same time. I said, "That wasn't so bad, was it?" He goes, "No, it was okay." So it was kind of fun. But we're just used to rebuffing it. And frankly, it's kind of hard to keep giving people compliments and they go, "Oh, it was nothing." Someone has given you a gift. What do we do with gifts? We receive it graciously and we say, thank you. So the ability to receive in this conversation is just as important as the ability to give. So don't be someone who just gives great acknowledgments and refuses to receive them. If so, we'll have to have a chat, you and me. So it makes sense to really get good at receiving it too. And feel free to spread that coaching on to your team. If they try to rebuff you, it's like, you know what? I've heard on this interesting conversation with Shannon that smiling and saying thank you is a great way to receive a compliment. Let's try that, shall we? And actually work with people, and they'll chuckle because they know what they're doing, but it makes sense. So the ability to receive a compliment is the other half of this equation. The last thing I want to say about giving acknowledgments is to really make sure that your acknowledgement is authentic and sincere. It's important that you mean it. Please don't do it just because you're supposed to. And don't forget to do it. That would be the other thing. So remember to do it, be authentic, be real. And if you don't have a lot of time, just say, I have to tell you, I was so impressed with what you just did. I don't think I could ever do it that way. And I know it's going to make a really big difference. Thank you. That took 8 to 10 seconds, but it's impactful. It's real. It's genuine. And even though it's fast, you're like, I got to go. I don't have more time to explain, but wow, I was just really blown away. Thank you. That's cool. People really appreciate that kind of acknowledgement. So if you want to make this a habit, then work on developing the skill. Go through the steps that we've articulated today. Your team will notice, your colleagues will notice, your peers will notice, your friends will notice, your family will notice, and you'll start to notice a much higher level of engagement. You'll start to see more of the behavior that you really want to see. You'll start to see people perk up when you come around because you tend to say nice things. And the interesting thing about acknowledgement, because it's always real, it doesn't mean that you have to be fake about something that isn't working. So when people know that you're generous with acknowledgement, they also tend to be pretty open when you've got a correction, if it's handled well. So it goes hand in hand. It just means that they can expect really good, clear information from you. And if it's something working really well, they'll be generous with that. And if something's not, then they can expect straight talking from you on that too. And that is being a good communicator and a good leader. All right, I probably filled your mind with enough of that for the moment. So thank you very, very much for listening. If you have any questions or comments, please let us know at questions@strategiccoach.com. And as always, here's to your team success. Hi, Shannon here, and thank you very much for listening. If you like what you heard today, please take a moment to rate the Team Success podcast on iTunes. And we'd love it if you'd share the podcast with anyone else who could benefit. If you're interested in learning more about the Strategic Coach program for entrepreneurs, visit us at strategiccoach.com or the Strategic Coach channel on YouTube. For free downloads and more team success strategies, visit teamsuccesshandbook.com.